Hi everyone, we made it. So, welcome to this section that we will learn about implementing services and sending notifications. In this video, we are learning more about bound services. A bound service is the server in a client-server interface. It allows components such as activities to bind to the service, send requests, receive responses, and perform inter-process communications. A bound service is one that allows application components to bind it by calling bind service. To create a long-standing connection, it generally doesn't allow components to start it by calling start service. Unlike the service, the bound service can communicate back with the bounded component. About bound service, the first difference between the two other types is that as soon as the component that bounded to the service stops, the bound service stops too. You don't really need to stop it as it gets unbound after finishing its task. The return value of bind service indicates whether the requested service exists and whether the client is permitted access to it. Unlike the started service that we use to return null in bound services, it's all about defining the iBinder interface. There are three different interfaces. First one extends the binder class. If your service is private to your own application and runs in the same process as the client, which is very common, you should create your interface by extracting the binder class and returning an interface of it from unbind. The client receives the binder and can use it to directly access public methods available in either the binder implementation or the service. Note that this method works only if the client and server are in the same application and process. Using Messenger. If you need your interface to work across different processes, you can create an interface for the service with a messenger. In this manner, the service defines a handler that responds to the different type of messenger object. This handler is the basis of a messenger that can then share an iBinder with the client. This is the simplest way to perform inter-process communication because the messenger queues all the requests into a single thread so that you don't have to design your service to be thread safe. And then there is AIDL, Android Interface Definition Language, or AIDL, decomposes objects into a primitive that the operating system can understand. We will explore all these three different binding methods later. Okay, now let's see how we can make use of the bound service. I'm using the project we made in previous videos. In the layout file, I made an edit text to receive a number and then send it to the service and receive the result. And I have made some changes. I deleted the intent service, and you can see that I have deleted some code and all we got here is the unbind function. Do not forget that you need to return the value of the iBinder in the unbind. I have created an inner class that extends from the binder class and contains a single method named getService, which will simply return a reference to the current service object instance, and a function that does something for us, and we use this from other components. Okay, now we are done with the bound service. Let's see how we work with it inside the activity. Then here we need to bind to the service. Any component, or let's say client, that wants to bind to a service must also implement a service connection subclass containing onServiceConnected and onServiceDisconnected methods, which will be called once the client-server connection has been established or disconnected. In the case of the onServiceConnected, this will pass an IBinder object containing the information needed by the client to interact with the service. So I bind to the service inside the onCreate, then send the input and get the result from the button. So okay, for now let's see the result on the emulator. Okay, now the app is up and running. Then I bind to the service. I type some data here and click on bind to the service. And you see it is bound and the result appears here. In the logcat, you can see that we have bound to the service. Then if I get out of the application, you can see that the service is completely destroyed. After coming back to the service, as we have defined the service inside the onCreate, it bounds to the service again and we can work with it. Okay, now that we know the basic concepts,